The lush, green hillsides were spread out beneath him. Even at 8,000 feet, he could make out vivid detail so much greater than any other animal of his nature. So it was not uncommon or unusual at all when he immediately recognized the swath of blackness beneath him. Even at 8,000 feet, he could see that some of the green patches had begun to return, but this bald eagle knew exactly what had happened. He'd seen it before a dozen times. A lightning strike, some wind, and the flame had spread through this valley and destroyed everything in its path. He immediately tucked his wings in. He drew his neck out, and he stretched his body as he began to plummet to the earth. Faster and faster, the blackness came into a closer and closer view. He was cascading through the air at what felt like the speed of a lightning bolt. And just as the wind in his face began to become too much to bear, he threw out his wings and performed an almost perfect 90-degree change in direction. From heading straight down towards the earth, now he was flying at breakneck speed, mere feet above the ground, covering the blackness, his head dodging from the left to the right, everything catching his eye. He saw the green shoots of grass sticking up through the blackness. He saw trees beginning to sprout. He even saw evidence of various animals, from the herd of deer that had returned to the valley, to the coyotes, to the other black and white inhabitants of the area who emitted such a pungent aroma, and even evidence of other birds of prey in the area. He knew that this valley was coming back to life after the apparent death it had experienced by being consumed by fire. He thought it only appropriate that he should make this his home for a season. He threw out his wings, climbed high into the sky, and began to circle, looking the valley up one end and down to the other. He saw evidence of bear and many other animals in this valley. He came to light on a treetop and sat still and looked at the valley that was spread below him. The animals were not the only ones who had returned to the valley. Humans had begun to reconstruct their living areas as well, with their living structures being built where obviously ones had existed before, and even new fresh grass was beginning to grow in front of them. The valley that looked as if it was dead from 8,000 feet, when viewed up close, this bald eagle knew he was watching a resurrection. He saw a mound of dirt beside one of the living structures of the humans. He threw out his wings, jumped off his branch, flapped twice, and glided down right beside it. He looked at it carefully. It began to move. And up from this mound of dirt popped a groundhog head. He slowly climbed out, sniffed around, looked at the eagle in the face, and said to him, "It looks like something happened while I was asleep. Do you know what it was?" The groundhog noticed that the eagle had an injury of some sort that had healed at the base of its throat. He wasn't sure whether it could communicate with him or not. The eagle said nothing, except one thing, his name. The eagle looked the groundhog square in the face and said, "My name is Phoenix. I'm new to your valley. A firestorm evidently has consumed everything while you were in your burrow asleep. I apologize that you've woken to such a destroyed area, but rest assured I've seen things like this before, and your valley will return to health. It just may take a little time." Gus shook off the ash and dirt that he had crawled up through, coming out of his burrow. He looked around. He said, "I'm very hungry, and all I see is black ash." The eagle said, "Listen for my call." And after 3 flaps of his wings, he was in the air. Slowly he circled, and then, about 45 yards away, he lit on a treetop and let out that distinctive bald eagle cry. Gus looked at the bald eagle, and the bald eagle then came down from the tree and landed in the middle of a lush green patch of dandelions. Gus hopped and waddled, hopped and waddled, hopped and waddled over to where Phoenix had landed, and he had his first meal in months. Gus had woken from his wintertime nap only to find the hidden valley had burned to the ground in his slumber. He was thankful he had made a new friend in Phoenix. And Phoenix, in turn, was thankful that this groundhog had survived the fire. As Gus munched his dandelion breakfast, Phoenix flapped his wings and flew away. Up the valley, he saw Millie and the skunk family. He saw Tanya the deer. He saw all the coyotes. He saw the bear. He saw all the animals in the forest. And he knew that he had found his new home. His injuries to the base of his neck and his throat had rendered him almost speechless, but he was able to communicate with Gus, and for now, that budding friendship was enough. It was the beginning of a friendship, much like the green was beginning to come back through the black ash of destruction. A friendship that was destined for greatness, as Gus and Phoenix would experience more joy, trial, and triumph than any groundhog and bald eagle would ever think to experience. The hidden valley would recover. The relationships of the animals among them would also recover, and they would indeed thrive for many years to come. Thank you so much for listening to today's Everyman Tale. I'm so glad that the hidden valley was not destroyed forever, and that there are signs of growth and life, not just among the plants, but among the residents there as well. You can listen to the Everyman Tales on a variety of apps and electronic mediums. The Podbean app, of course, is my home. You can listen on Amazon Music, Audible, TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, Podchaser, Boomplay, and more. Just look for the Everyman Tales podcast, and you should find me. Keep in mind that the stories I tell are meant for bedtime, daytime, nighttime, road trips, adventures, downtime, uptime, and any time that you're ready for a good story. Thank you for engaging your imagination. Thank you for listening to the Everyman Tales.